Good morning, everyone. My name is Jeff Davis. I'm a field crop entomologist with the LSU AgCenter. I'd like to start out by thanking, of course, the Sweet Potato Commission, all their support for all the work that we do here. Today, I'm here to talk about integrated pest management for clean seed. So as many of you know, we have a clean seed program going on. We got a grant through the USDA NIFA to be looking at the ability for our seed to stay clean once we plant it. Cole gave you a great overview in the greenhouse about the Foundation Seed Program and how they do that. My job then, and what we're trying to do here as entomologists, is to keep it virus free. Why, as an entomologist, am I working on it? Because aphids, small soft-bodied insects, are the vectors. Cole just sent out the Sweet Potato newsletter. I put a little blurb in there about aphid vectors being around all the time. They're like the mosquitoes here, right? Even though it does get cold and we do get some snow every now and then, right? Like last year, it doesn't kill them off completely, right? So aphids, the same thing, they're flying year round. Can we control the aphids? No, because even if I do specifically spray a crop for them, I'm going to have them come back from somewhere else. There's thousands of species flying around any one time, okay? The second thing is inoculum. So then what do we do to keep viruses away? Because we have vectors flying around all the time, the only other thing we can do is to start clean and stay clean. So what do I mean by starting clean? Using the Clean Seed Program, using seed that's been virus tested. Then also in your field, just like I put in the newsletter, is to make sure you don't have any other inoculum sources out there. So make sure, Donnie was just talking about weeds, making sure your field is weed free. Not just your field, your fence lines and everything, especially for the weeds that are also sources of those potiviruses, feathery mottle, sweet potato G, sweet potato C, and sweet potato virus 2, right? Those would be your different other Ipomea, your other morning glories, right? Okay, then if you got no viruses around, right? Even though the aphids are still coming in, what can we do in addition to keep that seed clean and try to do that? And what you see here before you is a plot of that, looking at those different tools and techniques. So in integrated pest management, we use cultural techniques. What I have here is a soybean crop border. Why soybeans? Okay, soybeans are not a host for the viruses for sweet potato, number one. Number two, what we do for pre and post emergence, besides glyphosate for soybean, works perfectly well with our sweet potato, right? So I can plant my soybean. Why soybeans and why a crop border? What happens is the aphids come in and they're going to look for the contrast between the green of the plant and the soil surface here, okay? When they see that contrast, they land on the green. Those aphids, to determine if it's an appropriate host, if it's a crop they want to feed on, they're going to probe, meaning they're going to try to feed. So what they do is when they probe on this leaf tissue, they lose the virus, right? Because those viruses are stylet borne, meaning only on their mouth parts. When they probe, they'll lose the virus. When they do move over to the sweet potato here, as long as this does not have any kind of virus inoculum, they cannot reacquire the virus, they cannot transmit, okay? That's number one. Number two, the different ways we're doing to protect the crop inside the border is we want to double up on our protection, right? I already got my crop border, but what if it totally mists and it goes into my sweet potato? Maybe I have like a drown out or a skip somewhere, right? That creates an artificial spot, that contrast where that aphid might land. So what am I going to do then? I'm going to use maybe a crop oil. Those have been used for 50, 70 years now in horticulture to protect for viruses, right? So we're testing crop oils. What about kale and clay? Something like Surround, okay? Surround is just once again, a product to change that contrast. We'll spray that, it turns it a nice white. It acts like a reflectant. Those aphids cannot tell it's an appropriate host, will move off. And then finally, we can use some kind of insecticides, right? So there are some newer products that might be able to kill quick enough to permit or stop virus transmission, okay? And what do we mean by that? Because, as I said, these viruses, non-persistent, they're not persistent in the vector, right? They lose it as they probe. But if I can kill that vector, and it has to be within probably 30 minutes, I'm okay. So some of the newer products like Savanto, Transform, we're looking at that as well. I have a graduate student here, Raywell Pablo. He's a master's student. He's working on this. This is really his project. But I just wanted to explain kind of what we're doing and how we're trying to keep your seed clean every morning, right? When I walk through my soybeans, when I'm sweeping for my stink bugs and doing my other field crop entomology work, I'm completely soaked through. And I'm not talking it's just my, swamp butt that I get from all the sweat. It's walking through those sweaty plants, right? So the same thing is that part of the, and it's also the rain. We do get some very consistent rains, right? So those mineral oils need to be put out, same kind of thing. They need to almost go out weekly. We're not really testing that. We're trying to do it like on a timed version, right? To try to cover and make sure we get coverage, try to time it when we have aphids around. We have some traps out that we're, looking at landing rates. We know when and what species they are and what time. Great question. So certain aphid species that vector the virus is better than that. Myzus persicae, the green peach aphid, and cotton aphid, unfortunately, are very good vectors, right? Cotton aphid, we get a lot of cotton aphid, right? We have cotton aphid that'll actually be in your soybeans as well, just not at high numbers, but yeah. So we have, those are the two most efficient vectors. If I use and do some, Raywell's been doing some work looking at single aphid infections we acquire and transmit. One aphid within like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, about 50% of the time I'll get a transmission. So a little better than a coin flip. And it's hard to control those because I don't know when they're coming, where they're coming from, right? Right. Right. And we do have some that'll colonize our sweet potato, but I rarely see any kind of colonization. That would be green peach aphid and potato aphid. I remember where we last left off when we were out in the field, we were talking about the use of crop borders or trap crops. We had soybean borders planted around our clean seed. These were sweet potatoes. And my job is to try to keep that clean. So if we planted out the field, we need to keep it virus free. The trap crops were our first technique that we were doing. And from this slide here, we can see that the trap crop by itself, using the trap crop, reduces virus reinfection by 57%. One thing to be sure that you do is to keep it clean. Here, if Donnie Miller, who's going to be next, would be here, he would be saying, look at all those weeds. We have nut sedge, we have some Palmer amaranth. If you have those in your field, it will disrupt the whole way that we're trying to keep it clean. They disrupt where the aphids are going to land. And these also weeds can be sources of where the aphids can actually thrive and multiply on. So when we see that at St. Joe, we had a 88% reinfection rate compared to if we kept it clean, it would be reduced at 23%. Again, we were trying different tools and tactics. If we use our stylet oil or surround, stylet oil, remember, is just a paraffinic oil. Surround is actually kaolin clay. It disrupts the color of the plant. The aphids cannot see the plant technically, and they have a trouble landing on it. That reduced our virus reinfection by 54%. If we used Lifeguard, Lifeguard is a product that actually induces the plant to defend itself against viruses. We reduced it further by 73%. And if we use Savanto, which is a great insecticide, we reduced it by as much as 86%. So in conclusion, crop borders work well. Plant your soybean border, you're going to reduce the virus reinfection. If you can, use a stylet oil or kaolin clay, that works as well. But remember that when you're using that crop border, try to keep it weed free. If you have weeds in there, that's going to disrupt the whole aspect of what we're trying to do, which is to confuse the aphid and have it land on the border, not in the sweet potato. If you use, say, something like Lifeguard or Savanto, you can further reduce that reinfection, Savanto being the best. So overall, if you want to reduce reinfection in your fields, You're going to need to try to keep inoculum sources down. So in other words, plant clean seed, keep all your weeds out of there, and use some of these alternative tactics such as crop borders and insecticides.